Welcome to the podcast We Are Made for More with Megan Alexander. In this podcast, we'll strive to inspire people around the world to become the best version of themselves by featuring guests with experiences and mindsets that demonstrate that we are all made for more.
Set sail with us as the waves of fate carry Megan's brother, Rufus Alfred Ayers IV, into a candid conversation about his remarkable transformation from an offshore fisherman to a yacht captain. This 10th episode marks more than a milestone. It's a family affair that unravels a tapestry of maritime tales from Rhode Island's scenic harbors to the Gold Coast of Long Island. Beyond the catch, this voyage continues into the heart of a fisherman's existence where beauty and brutality coexist. Rufe's journey is not just about the allure of the open sea, it's a testament to the potency of seizing life's opportunities. Through his eyes, experience the vibrant life and unexpected turns of a seafarer.
Hello, and welcome to We Are Made for More. I am your host, Megan Alexander, and this is my podcast. Hello, everybody. I always kick off with a warm welcome. If this is your first show or your 10th show with me, thanks for tuning in. I know you have a choice out there to listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm excited that you're checking this one out. So this is We Are Made for More. What does that mean? It can mean something different to everybody, but this is a place where dreams, fears, and inspirations hold court. And I'd love to show the extraordinary and the ordinary every step of the way because we're all made for more. So today is my 10th episode. You just heard me say it. And who's my special guest today but my brother, Rufus Alfred Ayers IV. Welcome, Rufe.
Hi, Megan. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you.
That was a beautiful introduction.
Thank you so much. We're going to have a good time.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a nice day out finally here on Long Island.
Perfect.
It's been a long winter.
It has been a long winter.
I mean, they're all the same amount of days.
They seem like they get longer every time, don't they? What is that?
I don't know.
Wow.
But this was a particularly long one. But so excited to chat it up with you today. Listen, folks, we are going to tell a couple of chapters in a decades-long life, right? We're not going to tell the whole life story today. But today's journey is about offshore fisherman to yacht captain and what that looked like for Rufus in his life. And he's going to navigate us through all of those steps and some really cool stories. I'm sure I'm going to learn something today that I haven't heard before.
Megan, you know most of everything that's going on, but maybe there's a few things that we can stir up. Sure. I mean, let's dig around, have some fun.
Let's do it. So what I'll do is give everybody a little bit of a bio, a couple tidbits.
Great.
So they know what they're going to hear about, and then we'll let you take most of it away.
I love it.
Okay, everybody, here we go. Rufe, we call him Rufe. Really, he fished out of multiple ports in Rhode Island for about 20 years, and those included ports such as Newport, beautiful city or town if you've never been there, Little Compton, Tiverton, Point Judith. He also fished out of Cape May, New Jersey in the summers for squid out in the canyons there. I'll let him take the language away because I don't want to mess it up at all. But then he transitioned to becoming a yacht captain on the Gold Coast of Long Island. Like I said earlier, this is just a couple of chapters of his life, but they're really interesting. And so I thought you'd all really like to hear about it today. So let's get started.
Awesome, Megan. Awesome.
Thanks. Let's have you take it away. I've already spoken too much, so I'm turning it over to you.
Okay.
Tell everybody a little bit about you first, just a little bit about your life, and then we'll kind of take it right into how you got into fishing.
Okay. Let's, born in Danbury, Connecticut. Mm-hmm. Grew up in Watertown, Connecticut. We lived there through most of all of our childhood, really. Yeah. And through high school, I went away for a couple of years to Berkshire to boarding school, and then back to Watertown High to finish up. Right. And graduate from Watertown. I was glad I did that.
Okay.
Yeah, I played sports all the while. Hockey, soccer, baseball, loved all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And then out of high school, I went right into the Air Force, and that was eye-opening, Mm-hmm. I didn't really know what I was in for. And I liked parts of it, but it wasn't for me.
Okay.
I knew that kind of right away.
Airman Airs,
yeah. And then, Airman First Class, and then, They would take a stripe away for something stupid I did, and then I'd get it back on. I would actually keep multiple uniforms with different stripes on them.
No way.
It was so back and forth.
Is that true?
Oh yeah, I was a case. I was a hard case. My immediates hated me. The major loved me because I played soccer and hockey with them, and so the major of the base. I was in with the higher ups. Okay. My master sergeant would come off base and save me. In Plattsburgh, New York, I was off, tubing the Saranac and then running up to sorority row in the morning.
You were trying to have some fun.
That's all I wanted to do. I was rebelling. I was rebelling. So it was not conformative for me to be in the Air Force.
You were rebelling because of the Air Force, or just life was rough at that time?
Yeah. But so almost 3 years in the Air Force, and then kind of bopped around for a little bit. Moved to New Hampshire with a girlfriend at the time, and lived up there. Worked at Attitash, and was a mountain bike guide and worked on the Alpine Slide. I was making like $5 an hour, but rent was like $200 a month. It was nuts. So yeah, I did that for a little bit, and then went back to Connecticut. I didn't really know. I moved to Little Compton, Rhode Island, with a good buddy of mine, Jay Burchard, in '97. Yeah. And just to get out and try some other stuff. I almost went to Colorado, to Leadville, with another friend, but I didn't. I went to Rhode Island, and I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
I made a life for myself there for many years.
Right. You really settled in there.
Yeah.
It became home for you for a long time.
It did. Met some really great people, and it was fitting for me.
Right.
Loved it. And I found the ocean, which I knew nothing about. We're from Watertown. You would think, but there was a couple lakes around, but
you weren't really near the water.
Canoes or a sailboat, sunfish, but never really anything on the water. But I'll lead right into the fishing, if that's okay.
I was going to say, and you're a Pisces, so the Pisces are drawn to the water, aren't they?
I guess so.
If you believe in that stuff, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
So we want to hear today about the fishing story, and I know it's a good one. So where do you want to start? How did it begin for you?
Actually, it started in Little Compton. It was by chance, Megan. I left my car in an ex-girlfriend's friend's driveway overnight.
Okay.
And the next day I went back to get it, and there was a note on it, looking for a job, AW. Well, AW turned out to be Alan Wheeler. And I ended up moving in with the Wheelers and trap fishing with them for a couple of years. And the kids are great, too. I'm still friends with Luke and Corey and Miles, and just a great bunch of people and hardworking. They are the last trap family in Rhode Island. And what an eye-opening experience that was. I'll tell you, trap fishing you're not going to get rich.
Okay.
But it's fulfilling in many other ways.
How so?
It was just all encompassing. It was everything I needed at the time. I'll just give you a quick gist of how it works. And maybe we have some photos to help too, but
yes,
that would help as well. But so there's one big steamer, we call it, one large boat, like 60-footer, and then it tows out 3 working boats, 3 aluminum working boats, and then a 15-foot skiff. And basically the traps are already set out there. They don't bait them or anything, and they're the size of buildings. They're absolutely huge. And the leaders that are these straight things that are attached to or anchored to rocks or shore.
Okay.
The fish will come in and hit these leaders and then be trapped inside, swim into this big net and get trapped in there. And we come out and surround the net, 15, 16, 20 people, mostly men, but usually a couple of tough chicks scattered in there. And just literally hand over hand pulling twine up and collecting all of these thousands of pounds of whatever. You never know what's going to be in there. That's the thing. It could be squid, it could be herring, it could be mackerel, scup, but sometimes you get sharks or sunfish. These things are just leatherback turtles, just wild things, and you have to help some of these things out. And then you collect and use this big net to dip in and load up the boat.
Okay.
And then you load up the boat with fish, hopefully.
So how do you pull them in? I mean, I think you just explained some of it, but how does that get? I've seen like a wheel or.
Yeah. So on these working boats, you basically have to pull up the frames and close the nozzle to trap the fish in there. And then you can hand over hand the net and bring them all aboard and purse them all together, if you will. It's like seining in a way.
Okay.
That kind of idea. And that is the Cadillac of fishing, as Alan would say.
The Cadillac.
Yeah, that's what he called it.
So that's the top, like the top. That's what he's saying.
Yeah. And, it's open to interpretation for sure.
Sure.
But I happen to agree with him. It was a great style of fishing, and but you don't get rich. You work every day.
Yeah, tell us about that. I mean, I love that you're guiding this story already. So you work every day, 7 days a week, every day.
7 days a week. Yeah, you're there every day, every morning.
When do you get the day off then? If it's 7 days a week,
if it's nasty out, it's weather dependent, really.
Okay. So in other words, you could. What was the longest stretch you would work? Was it 30 days?
Yeah, probably more.
Could be. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a young man's.
Yeah, typically.
Okay.
Typically. A hard man's or a hard person's job. You
Hard
could
person.
say.
I say man. I know, but young person.
Mm-hmm. And
or someone that's tough. I mean,
you got to find that extra gear and just keep going.
Okay.
And that's all fishing is like that. I found.
So, what was it like out on the water? Like, first of all, give us the rundown because you've done many types of fishing. We're going to talk about other things after this one, but with this particular type of fishing, how long was the trip? That's a day, come out in and out for the day.
That's correct.
Right.
It was they're short days.
Okay.
You're there early in the morning at 5 a.m. You get out. I think the boat leaves at 6, if I remember, and then you steam over to Newport off of the mansions over there, and the traps are set up. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. To be in that area, it's special.
Was it hard work?
Yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah.
It's hard work, and it's day in, day out. So you got to show up every day and just, grin and bear it. But it's rewarding in many ways if you could find that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What was rewarding about it for everybody or for you?
The experience, the camaraderie of everyone working together. I love that. I've always liked team sports and those kind of things, but sure, I like to go off solo, but it's great when everybody's working towards the same goal, and at the end of the day, you've all achieved that goal.
How many people would be on this boat together?
Typically 20,
Oh, that's a pretty
You need
good
at least
size.
15 to get the job done.
Right.
But yeah, and there's mostly young kids, I was in my early 20s.
Exactly.
When I did this.
Was there anything that would happen out there that was alarming at all? Or?
Oh my God. I remember one time this storm came over Newport and there were orange lightning bolts hitting everywhere around us. We had nowhere to go. We were trapped. The storm literally popped up on us. So these tires, they were in aluminum boats.
Yeah.
Think about it, and the mast on the Maria Mendoza was the name of the steamer, and that's a steel ship. So there's nowhere to go. So these tires that were hanging over, to keep from bumping into other boats, we would roll them in and stand on them, hoping that may help. And who knows if it did or not, but
so you didn't
kind of clutching
hit by
towards
lightning.
anything. Right. What a massive, nasty storm that flew by us. But yeah, all those things pop up.
Right.
And I'll tell you more about other kind of things that happened to me in different styles of fishing along the way too. Days I would stay out there longer.
Yeah, I want to hear about that too. So that was with the Wheeler family, though, that you were just explaining, right?
Yes.
Now, was this the same family where they had that video that they played at Mystic, Connecticut
That's
Aquarium?
exactly right. Yeah, Corey was credited for that, I think deservingly so, and I think she orchestrated that whole thing, put that together. It was really kind of a special thing. They're the last trapped family, basically,
family.
And it's generational. And,
That's pretty
their
special.
father still does it with
Wow.
them. And their grandfather had, and the grandfather before,
Right.
So, and Luke is still running the boat for them, I believe. And I think Miles comes back and helps out when he does, but he's living in Florida, doing something in a marina down there. I think he's in charge of a marina down there. They're all nautical kids,
Yeah,
nautical
that's pretty
guys.
cool. So you say it's the last
And
trapped
gals.
family. What happens if they stop doing it? I mean, I guess there's just other types of fishing, and
Yeah, I think that style of fishing has gone away.
yeah. And why do you think?
Multiple reasons, Megan. I wish I had that answer for you.
Right, now we're going into finance and who knows what the ways of the world and
Yeah,
how that whole market works. So
it faded away.
We'll skip past that story. But so then what happened? How long did you do that for?
Just a couple years.
Okay.
And met some other fishermen along the way, obviously, during that time, and found gill netting, which was the next style of fishing that I went into. And that was pretty cool. I like that. And that's a much different game.
Yeah, let's hear about that.
So we had these big salt bags, and we would keep our nets in these bags. The nets are made of monofilament lining, so it's basically just knot to knot, 12 inches, and these nets are as long as a football field, each one.
Wow.
We call them panels.
That's
so each
huge.
panel was 100 yards, and we would tie 10, 12, 15 panels together in a set, and then put end lines on each, anchors and end lines. Okay. And the nets basically stand up on the bottom with a lead line on the bottom and
so
a
they go
floating line,
down.
cork line on top.
Okay.
They stand 6 feet tall and lengths of multiple football fields.
Okay.
So the fish that swim along the bottom, the ones go through that we're not looking for, but 12 inches, knot to knot, we're looking for monkfish and skate primarily.
Okay.
Dogfish sometimes, but the market was dogfish. I mean, the market was monkfish back then. Yeah.
And why were they so popular?
They were special for a couple of reasons. The livers we had a market for overseas. The Japanese loved the livers, and we were getting a lot of money for them by the pound.
Wow.
And actually, we had, the most on different boats, everyone was like saving livers and they were getting shipped overseas. And we had maybe $15, $16 a pound we were getting at the height.
Wow.
And this was right before 9/11. And we lost our market over there because everything was grounded. The planes were grounded and everything sat at the flight line. So our loads didn't make it over. And I think the market fell apart. And it took a while. It took a couple of years for that to come back. And the money was never the same.
Really? Because I remember when you were doing monk fishing. I remember that was also a very intense job.
Yeah, they come up snapping. And you have
tell
to,
us about this.
You've got to knock them on the head, Megan. You got to take a hammer, a ball peen hammer, and knock them. Because they come up like this. They want to get you, And
they're like a piranha, no?
They have big mouths.
Right.
And, they're flapping in the net, and you're trying to pick them out.
Yes.
So I had a hammer right there, and I was playing
whack-a-mole all day. So was this one at a time? They come up, and you're whacking the
They come up dozens at a time sometimes, and they come up over the rail, and you're hauling up. So when I started, I was on deck.
Flying through the air? I'm picturing flying through
trapped in the net,
Okay. Okay.
They're not jumping out at you.
All right.
But they're coming up along the table, and they're coming right down the line, and you've got to act quickly.
So when you started?
So I started with Robbie Walls on the finest kind. And that's a lot of fun. There was another guy, Joe, on there who was a jerk. He didn't want to teach me anything,
Oh, that's always a bummer.
Yeah, it was tough to learn when somebody doesn't want to teach you out of his job, if you will. Because there's a lot of that, But I figured it out pretty quickly and actually started running a boat after a little bit. I ran the finest kind. Actually, I went dragging, and then I came back gill netting, and then was a captain of that boat, and then I went back dragging again.
So it was like
I was bouncing around. I was back into Newport, and I was working on the sea breeze with Phil Rule.
Yes,
and I started doing that, and I actually stayed on the sea breeze for about 5 years.
So that was that your longest?
That was dragging. Yeah, that was my longest stint, I think, on any one boat. Yeah, and Philly and I got along great. He's my age. He's also Phil Rule the fourth, and he was a fourth generation fisherman. His father, Red, was a fisherman as well. He was Phil.
I think we have a picture. Oh, sorry, I don't want to say that, but I think we have a photo there of, with the fish with his son, I believe, the little one.
Phil,
with the little guy.
With Phil the fifth.
Phil the fifth.
Yeah, Philip. Yeah, that'd be great if you could show that pic. He's probably pushing some mackerel or something down the hole on the sea breeze.
But I know I just cut you off and you were going to share about the sea breeze.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, that was a shame. That we did a lot of work on that boat. We did a lot of renovations to fix it and make it into an RSW boat, which is refrigerated seawater. So we would chill water and pump it through into the fish hold from the engine room. And, turn all these valves on these manifolds and get all the chillers going. But basically, we built it all ourselves. It was all just PVC pipes. We drilled holes in through them so water could come through and chill up and down. And then our squid wouldn't have to be iced. It could be chilled with water, and we would add it accordingly. And that was a way better style of fishing that way. But, after, I think, 5 or 6 years aboard there, I'd had enough of that. So... we'll just move along. And I wanted to get off that boat for a few reasons, and I'm glad I did. But unfortunately, it sank 5 months later.
I remember when that happened. That's a terrible story.
Yeah, east of Atlantic City, like 25 miles.
And how
off
many
Atlantic
people
City.
were on that boat when that happened?
3. Red, or Phil Sr., who ended up losing his life on that boat. He never made it out. And
that's tragic.
And then the other 2 guys aboard, Ray, whom I'd worked with for a while, and then this other kid who replaced me. And I don't remember his name, but
how did they get rescued?
They actually were outside of the boat. I don't believe they got into immersion suits, but I think they had something to clutch onto, or maybe life jackets on.
Yeah.
But they were in the water for about 3 hours, and that boat had listed and was sinking, and they're clutching to the side. 3 different helicopters came out to try to get them.
Wow.
And 2 were turned around with not enough fuel, I believe, or something. And the third one ended up being able to grab them and bring them back, but the captain wasn't to be found.
The captain went down.
Yeah, and horrible, obviously.
Yes, absolutely.
But it usually takes 3 things to make a disaster. And
what is that?
The third thing, well, the weather came up, so that was one. The boat was overloaded, had almost 100,000 pounds on it. Maybe shouldn't have had that much on it.
Wow, that's incredible.
It probably could have done it on a nicer day, and we had done that on nicer days, but not with that weather. And then something went wrong. What we can ascertain is that something wasn't properly locked down in the fish hold, and I think what happened was the braces weren't put in, and all the fish spilled from one side once it took a list.
Yes,
and then once it went, it wasn't able to come
couldn't
back.
right itself.
Yeah,
that's a shame.
So that was that. Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
So it was a tough hit for everybody, Junior especially. But he picked up the pieces and moved on and got another. He got Seabreeze 2, TOO.
And is he still doing that as well?
He is.
Yeah.
He was running that boat for a little bit, let other guys run it, and I think now he's moved on. He's running some bigger boats, like some freezer boats, stuff like that. He's always been a good fisherman.
Seems to me, though, based on the stories that you've told and are even telling now, it seems like an industry that people grow up in the industry, a lot of them, and once you're in it, a lot of people stay in it.
Surely.
It sounds like.
Yep.
It's what you know.
That's right. I mean, tough to get into and tough to get out of, I would say, like how would you even get into it? It's almost like happenstance,
right.
Just kind of timing and meeting and just working through it like that. I don't know.
That's why it's really cool how it happened for you.
Yeah. I agree.
Like you said, a note on the car, an opportunity knocks at that moment.
That's right.
And you were looking.
And
right?
I was looking. Like either you're going to get it or not. You know, you're going to take the chance or is it a good fit at the time? But I was always looking for something else, searching, Right. But fishing, I found a lot of peace out there.
I was just going to say, what do you like about it?
I mean, there's some beautiful things that happen out there. The sun can set and the moon can rise at the exact same time, and you're just out there in awe, able to pick your head up and look around. And did I ever tell you the story about those all right, listen to this one.
Okay, what do you got? I'm like, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. I'm not sure.
Excuse me.
Yeah, have some water. But not sure. Let me know.
We were on the Yankee Pride. I was fishing with Tom Donovan.
Okay.
And we had some surveyors aboard as well, some sea samplers, we call them. They would go out and check the mesh size once in a while and measure some different fish and make sure we weren't doing anything illegal. And once in a while, they would have to come up for trips with us. And I was on watch, maybe a 4-hour watch. And at the end of my watch, I stepped outside to take a peek around out of the wheelhouse. And something caught my eye. And it was the bow break was completely glowing in the dark.
Yes.
It was so cool, Megan. It was the phosphorescence in the water. And it was completely flat out. It was pitch black, middle of the night. And then you just see this beautiful glowing bow break, and I just was captivated by it.
And you couldn't get a picture of it because
there was no iPhones back then. That's right. This was before cameras on anything, We might have had a couple disposable cameras aboard, I think, if memory serves, but nothing was
It's not like you're out there with
it.
your cameras.
Yeah. I mean, it's so great now we can capture anything,
But it was a moment with you and the sea.
I woke up the other guys, Megan, because all of a sudden a pod of dolphins were swimming at us, and it looked like we were being torpedoed by aliens. It was absolutely insane. They were breaking the water and glowing in the dark. And we just watched them dance and play and swim around us, all of us in awe, for like 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
And then they moved on, and then that was that. That was just that moment of
and that was the middle of the night. Yeah.
Middle of the night, no one else around.
And no one will ever see that unless they're out there. And so how far out did you go for these kind of trips?
It varied. That's a great question. Dragging, we moved around mostly, and we would, in the summertime, you had mentioned Cape May, we would do that. We would leave out of Newport or Point Judith, and then we would steam, a couple days, a day and a half. It's only an 8-knot boat, 8 or 10 knot boat, so it takes forever to get anywhere.
Right.
So you want to make sure your moves are lucrative because it costs a lot to move around,
Right.
Put fuel and ice and food aboard, you're in the hole before you start putting anything aboard, any fish. But in the summertime, we would do that and then fishing out of Cape May for elex, which is a type of squid. And it's basically, it goes for bait.
Okay.
But we would catch it in such, amounts and abundance that was really a good way to go for us. So in and out every day and load the boat. Sometimes we'd load the boat in 3 hours and a couple of tows. These bags come up the sizes of school buses.
And then where do you put it all?
We just open up the gate, the hatches and let it eat, and down it goes. And then back we go, unload, and then right back out again.
And you're wearing special gear for all of this?
Skins, oil gear, they call it. Oil
right.
gear.
But you're kind of covered from neck to toe, right?
Yeah, suspenders. In the summertime, it's hot, so, suspenders and
that's true.
stuff. But
there's some photos I've seen of you where you're standing in the fish. And I don't know how, what photos I'm talking about, where you're standing there and there's fish literally, I don't know, it seems like it's going for the whole length of the boat.
Yes.
How much fish is that? What are we talking? You said 100,000 pounds before.
On the Seabreeze, that was about the max that could hold. I think a couple of these boats I showed you, I might have showed you a picture of Phil and had shared some pics with me on some of the, factory boats that he's on, or the freezer boats, and they're like twice that, those, they could probably, I think that it was like 500,000 pounds, 500,000 pounds of butterfish you put on in a day or something like that.
That's crazy. I mean,
these guys
it's
can really,
mind-blowing. Like for you, you're like, oh yeah, that's what we did. But for the rest of us, that it is mind-blowing if you've never really
seen that
before and understand what the commercial fishing market is all about and what it's like.
Totally true. And to be able to process all that stuff.
Yes, that's the thing. Tell us about that. I know you said when the monkfish would come up. By the way, don't you have a tattoo of a monkfish?
I do. It's a deep sea angler, actually.
I know there's a story.
Yeah, there's a bad story, Megan. You got me.
You thought it was
I thought it was a piranha when I got it in the Air Force when I was 18. Like, oh, look at that. The guy had probably told me it was a piranha. I'm like, all right.
Yeah, it's a good
Put
one.
It on there. And I still have that tattoo.
Yes. Why would you remove it? I mean, it's a good one.
Oh, my God. That's great.
But that was before you were a fisherman.
It's before I was a fisherman. And it was Kismet.
Yes. Who knew?
Which is the name of a boat out there.
Is it? Yeah. It's also a town here on Long Island.
That's right.
Island, so. But Rufe, we got to keep going. So what about some of the things that you'd pull up? You mentioned before, like you'd see a shark in a net or something. But tell us some of those cool tales about what would come aboard.
Oh, man. Basking sharks were eye-opening. The first time those big suckers would come aboard. And if you don't know what a basking shark is, look it up. And
I will. I haven't heard of that one.
They're impressive. They're huge sharks. They don't have teeth. They basically just open their mouth and kind of suck up krill or whatever it is.
Whatever's
they eat and
there.
Stuff. But they sure eat squid, man. And we would get some of those sharks in our nets, and what a mess to be able to get those off the boat.
Oh, was it?
They're huge. They're 20 feet long, and they're this big around.
So how do you get them up and over?
And they're moving, and they're not happy to be aboard.
Right.
Nobody wants them there. They don't want to be there. So how do we get them off?
How did you get them off?
We had to rig up some ropes around the net drums, tie them off, and then try to get a rope around its mouth on the other side and come back around and use hydraulics and back it off that way. That was probably the best way. If we didn't have a whip to, because if you tie it around the tail, you don't know if you're going to get that rope off very easily, and you don't want to hurt the things.
Was this, okay, I'm hearing all this, everybody, but mark me if I'm wrong. Was this fun?
It's all fun. Does it sound fun?
Hard. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Of course.
This is tough.
I mean, listen, it was a way of life.
Of course.
It was a way of life. Yeah. So
and it's making a living.
Making a living. I'll tell you, it's a hard home life, though. You're not home a lot.
Right.
So that's tough on a family.
Absolutely.
So I found that out, too.
Yeah, you did. But you did day trips on some fishing, and then there were trips where you were gone for extended periods of time.
That's right.
What was that like? Like being out there and some of the things that you saw. And how about the fact of like riding in some of the storms, and how did you sleep?
Yeah.
All of those things.
I'll tell you, Meg, it's amazing what you get used to out there. It really is. And speaking of weather, I'll tell you, the Yankee Pride was probably the hairiest boat I've ever been on.
Was it?
Joel Vernes was a great captain, but he had this motto: you got to be there when it settles. When the dust settles. Mm-hmm. So you have to put in the weather. And we would get our butts kicked out there, and it would be blowing 40, 50 plus. All the other boats are scattered, gone, and we would just be jogging into these seas at 3 or 4 knots, just trying to hold ground way out there.
And what kind of fishing was that at that time?
We were squid fishing aboard that boat mostly, okay. And we were icing too. There was no chilled seawater aboard there, so we were doing a lot of work.
You were doing a lot. What I do remember about those times in your life was I would ask you, so What do you mean you're out there in the ridiculous waves and the storms? Why don't you come in? I didn't understand from a logic standpoint. If it were me and I'm the manager, I would want people to be safe. But you're telling me you still got to go.
Because as soon as that storm stops and everything settles down, you set the nets and you load up the boat.
Right.
Because those scattered fish that were all confused and off the bottom for a while are now settled, hungry, and looking to eat. And we would scoop them up, and then we'd go with 100,000 pounds in a day.
Wow.
But we have to put 4 days of crap weather to get it, you know?
Get it.
And that was the story of that boat.
Was it scary?
Sometimes, I'll tell you, like I said, it's amazing what you get used to. It's you're living on the edge so much because this boat in particular was 80-something feet, maybe 80-footer, steel boat, and we pulled twin nets.
Yeah.
So we had the doors would go out on cables. The doors go out and open up, spread the nets, and 2 nets together. But in between was a huge slug of lead, about the size of this table.
Okay. And
that would hold, the 2 nets together. So then they're both open, and then the doors open those up. So we are wide sweep, and that's eating all that bottom, and that's a lot of squid coming aboard. It was a killer. That boat was a killer. We did really well on there.
You did?
Yeah, I did really well on there. I was there for 2 years, I think. But I'll tell you, the end of that, the end of my fishing career really was
on that boat.
Was on that boat. Sadie was 5 at the time.
Mm-hmm. That was your child.
There, my kiddo, and
is your child?
Yeah.
Meaning at the time though, being 5 years old. Yes.
Yeah, and it was tough. I was away a lot, and it was really starting to wear on me, But I'll just tell you this one in particular story.
Yeah.
We got hit by a wave.
Yeah, this is a story.
This one really rattled me, Megan. This is the one that I think made me really think about what I was doing out there. We got hit by a rogue wave, and we're used to, like I said, all water coming aboard this boat all the time, and we had these scuppers all along the sides.
Right.
This boat was constantly wet. We had multiple elastic bands around our skins to keep water from just flying up, getting in our boots. It was wet all the time.
Yeah.
Waves coming aboard when we're backing down and hauling back on the gear. But this one particular night, it was pitch black. It might have been 2 a.m. We're hauling back, and captain's up here, and both guys are on the hydraulics, net drums, bringing up the nets, and I'm in the middle, to hook them up together, and then up they go, and then we hoist them up and drain and drop them aboard, and and out comes, we trip the cod in, and out comes our catch. But we got hit by this wave, Megan, and it was just, before I knew what was happening, I was up off the ground, swimming on the deck, and
you were horizontal. You're ready to.
I was. It just came from everywhere. All of a sudden, this wave nailed us, and I was floating overboard, and
how scary.
Backwards. My feet were going, and my feet were over the rail. And I just grabbed out for something, and I reached out and grabbed onto a cleat on the stern that we tie off the boat, this big metal cleat, and I just held on what seemed like forever, but probably 10 seconds, and then the water just kind of scupped out and went away, and I hit the deck inside the boat, luckily, because it was pitch black in the middle of the night.
That would have been it.
And the water was white and just ferocious. It was blowing like crazy. I just would have been swept. And that one really kind of
Well, how could it not? It sounds to me like that would have taken you out to sea.
Like, what am I doing here? So is there something else I could be doing? Believe me, I asked myself that question a lot of times
before that.
On a lot of cold nights, sitting, waiting to haul back at 2 a.m. Get her back. I'm like, oh shit, what am I doing? Am I not smarter than this?
You are.
Or luckier than this, something? But yeah, anyway, I took a couple trips off after that last one, Megan. And
you were 40. I remember this.
I was 40.
You had just turned.
It was 10 years ago. Exactly 10 years.
Oh my God,
it was in March. My birthday was aboard.
There you
like,
go.
where's my cake?
Yeah, where is it?
Nothing,
Yeah, but how scary, and God was watching over you that night for sure.
I believe so,
I'm
too.
sure many nights, but that one sounds like you almost lost it.
Yeah.
Or we almost lost you. So thank God we didn't.
Thank you. I'm happy too. Believe me.
Glad you're still here. But what a story. But there's, I think that was what led you to, like you just said, think of what's next.
That's right. That was a catalyst for sure.
A catalyst.
I took a trip off, Megan, and maybe 2, but I did go back and finish off the season with him.
Yeah.
When he switched over to go scalloping, I told him I was going to be done at that point. And you know what? That's when I moved here to Long Island. You're like,
Hello,
hey,
Rufus.
what are you doing,
Yeah.
bro? Do you want to come check out Long Island? And thank you so much for that. I'm glad I did.
You're welcome. But I didn't know you would take me up on it. I'm certainly glad you did.
Me too.
I meant it.
I
So
worked
did
with
my husband,
Billy.
Yeah.
Billy was slamming with work and needed some help at the time. I was glad to help him. And that was awesome. I was working with
How
him
was
for the
that
whole
going
year.
from being 200 miles out at sea to working in audio video?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was
business.
night and day.
Yes.
I found out quickly
Little-
I had a lot to learn with Billy.
Cat 5, cat 6.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do
all
I
the cats.
terminate these lines? How do I terminate these wires, Billy? But he, you know, Billy's
Red,
awesome. He
orange over
helped me
green.
helped me along.
Yeah. I've listened to myself, but he's
Red,
the
red,
expert in
orange.
that.
Yeah, I forget what they are too now.
But it was a big change for you.
Surely.
To shift.
Yeah, it was. But it was great. I worked with Billy
you were
for the
safe.
year, and we would drive in and out of the Hamptons. We
Yeah.
did some jobs out there, had some really big accounts, and saw some cool stuff, and got to spend some time with him as I lived with you guys here, which was wonderful for the year.
Exactly.
And you know, that was about a year, maybe a little more.
Yeah, just a little over, I think.
And that turned into
yeah. What
the
it turns
next
to.
chapter.
Mm-hmm.
And again, happenstance, like it happened with Alan Wheeler. Was working on an account, and this guy, Mark, said, hey, do you know how to drive a boat? And I said, yeah. What are you thinking? And he bought this 64-foot Veacham, this beautiful yacht, and
Yes.
needed a captain.
So I'll say Mark happens to also be my brother-in-law, my husband's brother-in-law, mine by marriage, right?
Which was very helpful.
Which was nice, but it's nice to have known somebody. And meanwhile,
Surely.
you had all of this experience on the ocean,
Yep.
on the water.
And I had accrued a bunch of current sea time, which was totally helpful because I went back and got my captain's license.
And what was that like? Now you're back at school a little bit.
Now I'm back at school, Megan. The place that I couldn't wait to get out of my
stand it.
entire life.
Like, what happened?
Hated
What the
school.
heck? Wait.
Had to grin and bear it, right? Had to
Yes.
just kick it and do it to get this thing.
Because we are made for more, Rufus.
We are made for more, Megan. And I love that so much, by the way. I don't know if I've told you that, but I think that's a wonderful,
Thank you.
just the whole thing. It rests well, you know? We're made for more.
Thank you. I agree.
It's
And
true.
I keep telling myself that, and I keep telling my friends that, and my family that, and all of you listeners out there that we are made for more. Whatever that
Absolutely.
is for you, whatever that is you're dreaming up. Those moments out on the ocean where you're like, hey, what am I doing? Is this, look,
Yeah.
it was good for a while. It worked for me. But
That's right.
if you have that nugget, that thought inside your mind of, there's something else calling me. Maybe there is something calling you, and you got to listen to it.
100%. 100%. And you have to act on it.
And you have to
Yeah.
act on it.
You have to,
And
you have to
it's
know, you have to recognize
hard.
it
Yeah, it's hard,
and go and get it.
and you got to get it.
Whatever it takes.
Make those steps. This podcast is one of those moments for me.
That's
Just
right.
let's do it.
Be uncomfortable.
Be uncomfortable, everybody.
Yeah, step out of your comfort zone and try something else because nothing's going to change unless you do, right?
Very true. In
Yeah.
fact, I ran into someone today outside on the lawn, a really cool gentleman that's a landscaper in the area. And we were talking about how, quickly my kids had grown up, and such a profound thing he said in one little sentence. And he
What was
said,
that?
time waits for no one.
Nailed
Like
it.
that little nugget. I'm like,
Nailed
you're
it.
right. Time waits for no one. And you've got to
So
step
true.
into the fears sometimes of what's next. And also the other thing I'm working on is to stop letting what people think of you or how they judge you dictate decisions that you make for yourself. It's human nature.
Absolutely. That's right.
It's human nature. Like, oh, what
That's
if I
right.
fail at this? Or what if I can't do it? Or
The
but
fear
the
fear
fear.
of it. And we're here for such a short amount of time.
we really are.
And we weren't here for a long time. Think about it. Nothing was here. We weren't here for a long time. And then we're here and then gone forever.
There you go.
So why not try to do every single thing we can do in that short amount of time that we are here?
I love that.
Experience every possible thing you can. Do every single thing that you can because we're made for more, Megan.
That's right.
We're
That
made
is
for more.
absolutely a super moment. Thank you for saying that. I agree. We're going to go back a little bit, and then
Sure.
we're going to come forward into the yacht captain chapter. But just a couple things I think people would want to know before we move forward is things like, what did you eat out there? What kind of food
What
did you have out
eat
there
out
in the
there?
water? What was,
That's
a typical
that's a
day
great
like?
question too.
Yeah.
You would think we'd eat a lot of seafood.
That's what I
right?
would think. lobster.
Negative. No.
Fish. No.
I mean, yeah, some days, I remember eating we would crack a bunch of lobsters or crabs and make some in butter and hot sauce and make some stews real quick. Throw some Franks in with some.
All right.
I mean,
yeah.
Crackers, Ritz crackers. I could live on that.
But you had little stoves and ovens and.
Megan, I'll tell you. Did I tell you the crock pot story? We had a lashed down crock pot.
You've mentioned a crock pot.
Megan, it's hilarious. I loved this thing.
You love the crock pot.
It saved us because you can just throw in a roast, big, and then chop up some vegetables, and then put the lid on this thing, and then just go about your business. And it's basically cooking itself for a while, and it's marinating. When you're out there like rocking around in the sea, this thing is marinating in its own juices. It's like the most delicious meals I've ever eaten. We're out there in this crock pot. I got to tell you.
So it's basting as you're like going up and down.
As we're bouncing around in the sea, and the thing is like lashed down. The refrigerator's lashed down. Everything's tied down. Even like you asked, how do you sleep? Like everything is tough. And you're like this in your bunk. You're like pinning yourself in your bunk because you're just.
So were you half sleeping? Is that what that was? You kind of sleeping, but
you don't get a lot of sleep. I'll tell you, it's a tough job. It's a tough grind.
It is a tough grind.
Yeah, day in, day out.
I mean, I have to say, cheers to you for doing it all those years, 20 years about almost, and cheers to those that are still doing it because let's face it, that's a huge industry. Absolutely. And people love to go out to eat and cook fish and think about it, your lobsters and squid and scallops. We didn't even talk about scalloping. That was a crazy story for you.
Terrible trip. I'll never do that again. We would catch scallops on these draggers too in small amounts. But yeah, I did take a scallop trip, and that was just an absolute dud. I don't even know if I want to tell the story.
All right, well, we can skip that one. Yeah. It was a tough one. The point is there's many chapters within this novel of fishing alone.
Absolutely true.
What a life. So, but you did say it's amazing what you could get used to out there, and you've said that a couple times, and that resonates with me. Just how the determination and the resilience that you had to have. So
and then I look back now, 10 years later, really, but of 18 or almost 20 years of that life, and I almost. I wish I got out earlier, obviously. I wish I had made a move earlier. But you can't go back, Megan,
You can't go back. And so
I'm glad
here we are.
doing what I am now.
Right, which is, let's fast forward to this story again where you said, you met Mark and Leslie. And
that's right. And I started, and I got my captain's license. I was captain of their 64-foot yacht for 3 years.
It was a beautiful boat.
Absolutely gorgeous. And they had it up until last year. They had it for almost 10 years. And I actually ran it again last year. But I had gone away, and I worked with another guy, Fred, and ran his Grand Banks for a while. That was a beautiful boat.
And how big was that one?
That was a 72 Aleutian is what that was with a flybridge. And that was gorgeous.
That was a beautiful boat.
And I took that up and down the coast, back and forth to Florida a few times.
Right. And now both those boats that you've mentioned so far out of Huntington, New York.
That's right.
And Long Island, which is I live in Centerport, which is 3 miles away from Huntington, and you live right there in the village, but near
this
the water.
Place is great. I met Tommy Knutson right away through that deal. He sold Mark and Leslie that boat. Tommy's aces. He's become one of my best friends. You know him.
We love
Billy
Tommy.
Knows him.
Tommy K.
He's part of the family.
Come on back.
And I still work with Tommy. He calls me up, Brewdog. I got a boat for you. Let's go. And I'll do sea trials. I'll hop in the car with him. We'll fly out to Sag Harbor or something. We'll do a sea trial together. And it's great.
It's a neat community.
It's the whole thing works out. The Freddie Group or Allied that he works for. And actually, I took a beautiful boat years ago with one he had sold a family, and they flew me down to right into the Freddie Group harbor, where all the factory. Yeah. And it's basically these boats are like right in these slips, right in the water, and it's absolutely gorgeous in Florida and Fort Lauderdale.
I've seen some of those pictures.
Took that brand new boat down to Miami and then over to the Bahamas. The family flew in there. I spent like 2 weeks in the Bahamas showing them around on this.
That's right.
And then flew back home. I mean, what a trip. It's just those things have happened because of this industry and meeting people and, all these beautiful boats I get to run. These Rivas and Ferrettis and
Wallies.
Pershings and Wallies. They're absolutely stunning, brand new multi-million-dollar boats, and I get paid toying around on them for the day. I can't believe it. It's
but fun. Is it okay? What's that TV show? Is it like the Below Deck type of show? No, it's not. You were going to say that.
Luckily,
no, nothing like that.
Luckily.
That's just TV,
Thankfully.
really.
Yeah, it's
right?
above deck.
Yeah, it's above deck.
Yeah, everything.
You should make your own show.
Everything fun happens
You
above
and Nikki.
deck. Come on, below deck. Get out of here.
We got to talk about Nikki.
All the fun stuff happens on the water. Yeah, Nikki is my beautiful fiance. That's right. And I'm very happy and lucky.
Yes,
and she's been with me. She's been up and down the coast with me. She fell in love with the industry. She joined the Audubon Society. She fell in love with birds and every dolphin swimming behind us. She couldn't get enough of it. She was my little trooper. She and I took that Grand Banks back from Florida up here together. Just the two of us during COVID when that hit.
I remember that too.
We were lucky enough to be down there aboard that boat during that whole pandemic and for months in Florida.
And then you had to take turns, right? What's the right terminology?
Oh, yeah. To bring it back? Yeah. She was great. She would pilot that thing right next to me,
I was like, what's the right word?
Yeah.
The helm? What's the right terminology?
Either of those is fine.
Okay.
That works. Yeah. It's great.
All right.
But she's a trooper. She's wonderful to have as my matey or my co-pilot,
So you work together now and bring us back past the Grand Banks.
Yep.
I say the Grand Banks. That's that was the boat.
That's right. Yep. Oslo Fjord. That was a beautiful boat. And that got sold. So we almost stayed in Stewart. We almost stayed in Florida. We made some pretty good contacts and some good opportunities were there for us. And we really love the climate. I'll tell you that. The place is beautiful.
It is.
But my kiddo's back here. My
Right.
family's back here. You know, it wasn't the right time. So I didn't want to do that at that time. So
And another opportunity
came up here. Mark and Leslie bought a bigger boat, a 97-foot.
Sounds just like the saying, we're going to need a bigger boat. I'm sure you've heard that many times.
And that opportunity came up. And so I'm back here captaining that boat.
And that boat is...
Nicole is my mate. That boat is...
Which one is that called? The type of boat? That's a Veacham.
Veacham, yeah. Well. Sorry. Yeah, that's a Veacham, a Turkish-built wooden boat, cold-molded.
It's a beauty also.
Beauty.
97
It's actually in the yard right now. I'm back and forth to Bridgeport getting that thing ready for this next season.
So that's gorgeous.
A lot going on. Exciting stuff.
So talking about the yacht life, how is it different than... I mean, I guess we could all draw our own conclusions.
Exact same.
It's the same, right? Yeah. Going out and, we didn't even talk about that. I wanted to definitely get this on record here. How big those waves were when you were out fishing, like some of those waves that you saw. And we know we talked about the rogue wave already that came from who knows where.
Yeah.
But what were some of the big waves that you'd see?
Yeah, we would get in some pretty hairy seas out there and live out there for days. And you would see lights come and go because you're just up and down in these huge swells, you know. But the Atlantic can stack up pretty bad. It gets hairy out there. And I saw a lot of it for many years in the winters.
Maybe 20,
30 foot plus waves for sure.
Okay. I always said we do TV and movie correlations, I guess is the right word I'm looking for. So remember the movie with George Clooney? That's True Story.
Yes.
Is that realistic too? The
that
size of that
100-foot wave?
Yeah. Was that 100 feet?
That was a 100-foot wave.
Okay.
I think they made that in a bathtub.
Maybe.
But the story is
the story's
absolutely
true. The story was true.
Yes.
But was that true? Like a 100-foot wave? They think is what took them out. Oh, gee, that's so terrible.
During that hurricane, yeah. Can you imagine a 100-foot wave?
I can't. But you saw up to 30, 40-foot waves.
Yeah.
I can't, guys. I can't imagine that. I don't know if all of you can out there, but just this. How tall that really is, and the men and women of the sea that are out there dealing with that.
That's right.
It's remarkable.
And you know, fishing is one thing, and there's all these. Think about the Navy people, the Navy guys. They see, and they're on huge ships, and they see tremendous seas.
That's right.
Those guys live out there in that stuff.
Yeah,
day in day out.
It's a different life.
Men and women, you know, different life completely.
You would not take the 97 Veacham out in those seas.
No, I would not.
In that way, it's much different.
That Grand Banks I might though.
Okay.
I had that thing in some pretty 15 to 16 footers going through the goalposts down, heading around the Carolinas. That was.
I can imagine it doesn't kind of bang down.
That was a beautiful boat.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are great boats.
But no,
I've seen a lot of weather, but this is a different life. This is a fair weather life now, and it's good because I'm getting older. It's about time. That's
true, but it's not all easy being a yacht captain, right?
No, it's certainly not.
Yeah, it's different.
A lot of planning. It's a different way to go about things, you know. I totally enjoy it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Great.
I love working with the people. Yeah. I like the contacts. It's a nice life.
And the beautiful towns that you get to visit.
Absolutely.
Like the whole Northeast.
Absolutely. This place is gorgeous. And then anywhere around here you can't really miss, you know.
Name some of the towns in the Northeast that you guys pull into.
We love going to Nantucket for one. Newport, absolutely. You know,
Newport's one of my
Sag
favorites.
Harbor.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some special places that I'm not going to mention because I don't want people to know.
Understood.
But even going up the Hudson was a cool trip. You know, the 64 we would take up there, and that's a neat ride. Totally different experience.
I never did that one with
you
you
never
guys.
Came
On
with
that.
us one
Yeah, they kept asking us, and
Megan,
it never
I wish
worked
you
out.
did. Maybe we'll do it on this one if we could find a place to put this boat up there.
Yeah, Leslie would always say, "Oh, she loved the in the fall going up the Hudson."
The CIA,
the
Culinary Institute, and that was fun.
Yeah,
it's a nice in the spring or in the fall is nice. The leaves are changing on the trees. You know, you go past West Point up there. It's gorgeous. You know, up in the hills. That's a nice ride too. Mm-hmm.
So let's see. What haven't we talked about with yachting that you would mention? I was going to say, what's a hard day like aboard, but we already kind of touched on that. It's
you're always fixing something. That's the thing, you know. Something's
That's
breaking.
true.
This is what we say. Something's breaking right now. We just don't know what it is yet. So we'll find it.
That's
but,
right. I know you hear the producer.
Yeah, you just want to have a nice easy day and cruise, but there's always something.
Listen, for people like my husband and me, for example, we always say that the best boat is someone else's boat.
That's a great point, Megan.
Yes.
Yeah. Show up with some food or some beer.
And we always do.
Yep.
We always show up with as much as we
the way to
can.
go.
We'll bring food, we'll bring wine, we'll bring it all.
Yep.
But we appreciate all of our friends that have boats because it's a lot of work too.
Absolutely is.
To maintain these things. But what advice would you have for a current fisherman or somebody out there that's looking to make a change?
Do it. Get out as fast as you can. Call me. I'll give you some hints.
There you go.
I tell my friends that, like, the grass is greener. Trust me. Please just try it. But you do what you do and you love what you love. And sometimes you can't, you know, for various reasons. I was fortunate enough to be able to come here because you lived here. My sister lived here.
Yeah.
Be able to just move and start somewhere abruptly. It's not always possible.
It's not. And I'll tell you what, like,
I was lucky.
That's great that you feel that way. But I have to say too, even when you had said, "Oh yes, I'm ready to do it," I had those moments of, "Oh my God, is my brother gonna end up, hating me?" Because it's different when you have a family that you love and you visit once in a while, right? But then when you're going to live together for a bit, it's like, oh, are we going to get along? And we did. We did get along. And you don't get along all the time. That's the reality.
How could you?
But you know what? It's family. And we wanted to, I'm so glad that it worked out.
It was wonderful. It was the best move I'd made, probably.
I'm so glad that you feel that way, Rufe. And, the other things we didn't mention yet today, just even about our own family, we do have another sibling, our brother Tyler. Hi, Ty.
Tyler, what's up, buddy?
Hi, Ty guy.
Talked to him yesterday.
Me too, actually. We both did. That's nice. But he and our mom and stepdad live on Cape Cod.
Rob and Bill, yep.
And
don't get to see them nearly enough.
We don't. But they ended up near the water too, and I think that's why I'm bringing that up. It's so interesting.
I love that they did.
Being that we're all from Connecticut.
Love that move that they made. It was the best thing ever.
It really was.
And Bill's kids too, that we've become close with, which is great.
Right, they love the water.
They all love the water too.
They do.
And
we
all try to get together.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. So hello to our family out there. Mm-hmm. Anything else that we haven't touched on that you would say, hey, we gotta mention this? Probably.
And we're probably going to say, shoot, what did we not say? But maybe I can get a guest invite back, Megan, or I'll sneak back in.
Oh, maybe you can.
And do a part 2 with you sometime.
You happen to know the producer and the host. So, you know what?
I feel lucky to be here, first of all. Thank you for inviting me on.
You're most welcome.
This is very cool.
You have been a very pleasant guest, I have to say, on our 10th episode.
Number 10. I love number 10. Lucky number 10. It felt great.
So I got past the pod fade, everybody, of getting a 10 episodes out. We're gonna keep going, and like Rufus just said, we'll absolutely have him back. We're gonna do some short episodes too, and maybe we'll do like, hey, let's talk about the starfish.
Oh my God, I would love to tell you about the starfish.
See,
all sorts of different things that we would come up with.
You said they're huge.
They're huge. They're multicolored, multi-legged. I mean,
Who
10,
knew?
12-legged purple starfish.
Is that true?
I swear to God.
Yeah.
I would collect these things, Megan, on deck, like in my free time. Or we would come up with sea urchins, and I would spend time cleaning off all the spines and drying them out and putting like a little bleach in with the water, making them perfect. They're purple and red and different colored. And I bring them home and lay them out on the picnic table back home. And my dog would come and eat them all, and I would be so furious. After all that work.
But you had to kill time while you were out there. Right.
But the stuff you come up with is unbelievable. The stuff that you could find, it's really not that deep. It's not in the trenches somewhere.
Yeah.
It's really close in George's Banks, a couple hundred feet down.
It's
amazing
fascinating.
what's living and swimming down there.
It's a fascinating life at the sea, I have to say. And I'm definitely, my cup is full. Thank you so much for sharing all this good stuff today. And hi to our mom. Hi, Mama.
Hey, Mom.
Hope you like this episode. And, hi to our dad that's hopefully watching over us.
Megan, this was such a treat for me. Thank you so much. I think it's awesome what you're doing.
Thanks, Rufe.
Glad and proud to be here.
Love you to pieces.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today, everybody. So excited to have all of you here. Please, if you have a moment, rate me on your podcast channel. Let me know what you think of this. Like and share. Send it to someone that you think might enjoy a great fisherman to yacht captain story. And most of all, just remember, we're all made for more. Have a good day.
Well, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, bookmark this podcast and follow Megan on Instagram. Okay, now for the disclaimer. This podcast is solely for educational and entertainment purposes. Megan is not a licensed therapist, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified profession. Goodbye, everybody.